Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a 2,000-year-old philosophy that's having a huge moment right now. But we're also going to look at it through a really surprising lens, one that makes you question what its ultimate purpose really is.
All right, let's jump right in with this core idea from philosopher Massimo Pigliucci. At its heart, Stoicism is not about thinking positive or just wishing things were different. Nope, it's a philosophy of radical realism. It's all about looking the world square in the eye, chaos, complexity and all, and figuring out how to work with it, not against it.
And, that realism immediately slams you with the big question, right? The one that basically every great philosophy tries to answer. If the world is so unpredictable, if so much is outside of our control, what's the game plan? How on earth are we supposed to find any kind of peace or meaning in all of that?
So first, let's get a clear picture of what Stoicism actually is, because it's so much more than that cliché about just having a stiff upper lip.
The ancient Stoics looked at human beings and basically said, okay, what are our two superpowers? They landed on this. We're social and we're rational. So they figured the best life we can possibly live has to involve using our reason to live and work together. It's actually a very practical, community-focused starting point.
Now this brings us to what is probably the single most famous, most powerful idea in all of Stoicism. It comes from the philosopher Epictetus, and it's called the dichotomy of control. He argued that the whole path to a good life, to tranquility, starts with making one simple but crucial distinction, separating what is actually up to you from what is not.
And why is that so critical? Well, think about it. We all have a finite amount of energy, time, and attention. Every bit of that energy we spend worrying about stuff we can't change, like the traffic or what someone thinks about us, is energy we can't use on the things we can change. It's not just a waste. It actually stops us from being useful to ourselves and to the people around us.
And it's so important to get this. Stoicism was never meant to be some abstract academic theory. It is a hands-on system, a practical toolkit filled with specific mental exercises you're supposed to use every single day.
Epictetus actually organized this system into 3 disciplines. First is the discipline of desire. That's all about taking a hard look at your goals and making sure you value the right things. Then there's action, which is about how you put those values into practice when dealing with other people. And finally, there's assent. This is the master discipline. It's about using clear, rational judgment to guide the other two.
And if you want proof of how practical this system is, get this. In the 1960s, pioneers like Aaron Beck were developing cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. One of the most effective forms of psychotherapy we have today. Well, they drew direct inspiration from these ancient Stoic techniques. They saw the genius in managing our emotions by managing our judgments about events, not the events themselves.
Okay, so I think we have a pretty good grip on Stoicism now. But let's throw in a curveball. We're going to introduce a completely different perspective, and we'll use the 3 most famous Stoics to guide us through this new lens.
What's just incredible is that the 3 Stoic writers we know the most about came from completely opposite ends of the social ladder. I mean, you have Epictetus, who was born a slave. Then you have Seneca, a super wealthy politician. And then Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, literally the most powerful man on earth. And yet they all lived by the exact same philosophy.
Okay, now here is the pivot. We're going to look at these exact same virtues, but through the framework of Freemasonry. And this perspective asks a really provocative question. What if these virtues, this self-control, this reason, aren't just for building a personal shield to protect yourself? What if they're actually tools meant for a collaborative, constructive project?
And this all leads us to this powerful central metaphor that really captures the difference between these 2 ways of seeing the world.
So let's look at this comparison. For Epictetus, the slave, virtue was like a plumb line for his own inner freedom. But in Masonry, the plumb line is a tool to make sure your actions are morally upright for the good of the community. For Seneca, the politician, his ethics were like a square to make sure his personal life was in order. For a Mason, the square is for making sure your actions line up with the group's shared work. Do you see the pattern? It's this subtle but profound shift in focus from the individual to the collective.
You can kind of boil this down to a fundamental difference. Stoicism, especially the way Epictetus teaches it, can look a lot like a philosophy of subtraction. You find peace by removing your attachment to things you can't control. The Masonic view, on the other hand, is a philosophy of addition. It says, okay, now that you have that inner freedom, use it to actively add to the world through things like charity and community building.
And this changes the whole purpose of reason itself. Is reason a shield that you hold up to protect yourself from what feels like a random, chaotic universe? Or is it a ladder, a tool that helps you climb toward understanding a universe that's believed to be fundamentally ordered and structured, a universe created by what they would call a great architect?
So in a way, you could say the ultimate goal for the Stoic is to build this untouchable fortress inside their own mind, a safe space, completely protected from the chaos of the outside world.
In stark contrast, the Masonic ideal is to take the virtues you've perfected, leave the isolation of that personal fortress, and join hands with others to build something shared and sacred, a temple that can benefit everybody.
So, what's the takeaway here? Why does this distinction matter for us today? Well, because it really forces us to think about the ultimate purpose of our own lives.
You see, as Massimo Pigliucci says, every single one of us is already living by a philosophy. We all have an operating system. We have a set of values, whether we've ever sat down and thought about them or not. The only real choice we get is whether to be conscious of what that philosophy is.
So this leaves us with two really compelling models. You have the Stoic path, which gives you the tools to shape yourself into this resilient, disciplined individual. What Masons might call a rough ashlar, a raw stone that's been shaped by life's hard knocks. Then you have the Masonic path, which suggests the next step is to take that stone and polish it, perfect it, so it can fit beautifully and seamlessly with others to build something greater, a wall of humanity.
And this really brings us to the final, crucial question, the one for you to think about. When you reflect on your own values, your own operating system for life, what is its ultimate goal? Is your philosophy a fortress designed to protect yourself? Or is it a set of tools meant for building something bigger, alongside other people?